It's been a hard week, man. It's been almost a month now. So, winter is already here in this part of India. The sun is yet to rise. It's 6 a.m. in the morning. It's pretty gloomy outside, fog all over, and almost very low light coming from outside. And that calls for some warm clothes, good books, and obviously some good coffee. I'm just kidding. I drink coffee throughout the year. What's up everyone, Pursuit of Shutter here. Hope you all are doing good and your near and close ones are staying safe and healthy. So today I am back with yet another tutorial, basically a series of tutorials where I will be breaking down some great photographers and filmmakers who are crossing their Instagram game with their amazing creativity, some amazing editing techniques and some out of the world tones. And today we are going to talk about Sam Kolder. He's a person I look up to him in almost every creative aspect of my life. I idolize him a lot, but this is not a direct advertisement for you to just blindly take his tones and put it in your work. This series is basically for breaking down the editing style and the shooting style of some great fellow Instagrammers and then pick them up and just learn how you can achieve some subtle blues from Sam Kolder or some muted greens from Peter McKinnon. The choice is all yours. You are going to sprinkle up your own creativity and you mix up your color palette, keep crossing your experimentation with colors and everything else, and then you just merge them together, sprinkle over and garnish with your own creativity, and you will find your own style probably. And that's the basic motive of this. And when we talk about Sam Kolder, just in case you don't know, I will be going through his Instagram profile first to break down his shooting style first, and then onwards we will go to the editing portion where I will be showing you the workflow that can get you as near as the colors from Sam Kolder's photos. Obviously there is a disclaimer that this workflow is nowhere near to what Sam is doing with his photos, but definitely you can cross almost all of them, those colors from this workflow. So stick around and see if this benefits you to some extent. So let's have a sneak peek through his Instagram profile first. The colors in his feed speak directly to the soul of the viewer. He maintains the orange and teal, the most popular orange and teal from the Hollywood, in such a subtle manner that it stands out from almost every creators out there. Such subtle blues, some tropical blues, and at the same time those earthy oranges, they look so juicy, man, so juicy. So much of punchy blacks, so much of contrast in his photos, and just leaves us in awe. And one more thing, he loves shooting with narrow aperture, so very less depth of field that lets him keep the background in focus and texture along with the subject. So that's how he loves shooting it. And about the location, it's just amazing. He is a traveler of some other level and he finds out spots that almost no one can find. And his drone skills, filmmaking skills are something that we can talk about later. Probably I will link a couple of his best filmmaking stuffs in my description so that you can go and check out and find out what a genius and masterpiece he is. Now let's move on to the editing part and see how we can kind of replicate those colors in our photos. So let's start off by pulling our photo straight into Photoshop and check how I can fit those colors in my photo and if I can really pull it off. So Let's go straight into filter and camera dot filter. I'm using Photoshop, and that's why I'm going here. In case you are using Lightroom, your develop tab is the answer for this. So first, it's all blue here, and this photo was shot around dusk, so I will be pulling up the temperature a bit to around like this. Looks good. Let's pull the tint up towards, so let's pull up the tint a bit to add more magenta to the sky so that it looks more like a dusk time photo. That looks perfect, and the photo is well exposed, so we won't play around with the exposure. And in case of contrast, we won't be touching it for now. In case we need it, we will be adding some S-curves to every channel for green, red and blue, and then we can add some contrast to the whole photo. So we are keeping it untouched for now. Let's go to highlights and pull it a bit down so the brightest part of the water gets neutralized and the details in the sky gets back to it. And there's not much of shadows in the photo. The boat here looks totally perfect, so let's keep the shadow as it is. In terms of white, let's pull it a bit down so that the bokehs and the brighter part of the water looks a bit contrasty, so it's fine. And let's keep the black untouched as well. Let's pull the white a bit more towards the left. So let's go straight into the color mixer tab and let's play around with the sliders and let's see where we can really land up to. Now let's pull up the reds towards the oranges. There's not much of red in it, but still I am pulling up the reds towards the oranges so that it induces some kind of sunset vibes to the photo. Let's pull up the saturation as well, and in terms of luminance, let's pull it up a bit. That's just fine. Now let's come to orange. Let's pull the orange towards the red a bit. That's fine. And now saturation, let's pull it up to give that earthy orange vibe to your photos. And luminance just a bit upwards so that it doesn't look dark and muddy. Now let's go to our yellows. Let's pull the yellows all the way down towards the orange so the bokehs and the lights on the other shore of the sea looks perfect. That's fine. Let's pull the saturation all the way down, and luminance, let's pull the greens all the way down, so if there's some kind of green left in the water, it goes off. Let's pull the greens all the way down, and we don't touch the luminance much here. Now let's move on to aqua. We won't be touching aqua as well. Let's keep it as it is for now. Now let's move on to the blues. That's where the game is going to change. Now let's pull it down a bit, and saturation of the blues a bit, and luminance of the blues to a bit dark, on the bit darky side, so that it looks somewhat like Sam Kolder's ones. We will again go back to the camera calibration and later come back here. And now in case of purple, let's pull it back. Now in case of purple, the luminance is fine. Let's go to the saturation. Let's pull it down a bit. And in terms of hues, let's pull it towards the blue a bit so the sky looks perfect. And in terms of magenta, let's pull it up towards a pink to add some dusky vibe to the photo. When it comes to saturation, let's pull off the saturation, or you can keep it as per your choice. And luminance, it looks absolutely fine, so we don't need to touch it much. Let's go to camera calibration portion, and now let's induce some kind of magenta to the shadows so that it neutralizes the magentas and the blues of the sky. In case of red primary, let's pull up the hue towards transition looks good, and the saturation a bit upwards. That looks fine. Now in terms of greens, we will pull it all the way down because blue somewhat affects the greens. I guess this looks good, and the saturation a bit towards the low, so the water is getting towards the blues of Sam Kolder, I feel. So that's fine. Won't be pulling it down that much, just a tad bit, like 10 is looks good. Somewhat around 10 looks good. Now let's go to the blue primary. We won't touch the hue of the blues. Let's pull down the saturation a bit so that we get that faded blues in our photos. It's almost done. Now let's go to color mixer once again. Let's play around with the saturation of blues a bit until you are satisfied. So that's pretty much it. Now, so I have already made a preset out of it. So what I will do I will let it be like this, and then I will open up some other photos to check how they're working with them as well. Let's go to filter. Let's go to camera raw filter, and then go to our presets and hit moody life. That's what this preset looks like, and with some just little adjustments like pulling up the exposure a bit, pulling up the shadows a bit, pulling the highlights down, and the blacks a bit up. I feel the orange looks way too saturated, and let's go to the color mixer tab and pull the orange saturation a bit down and luminance a bit up, and this looks perfect to me at least. So let's hit OK and try with some other photos as well, a couple more maybe, so that we can just be sure that it's working. And now let's take this photo for example, and let's pull it back to Photoshop, and then go to filter, camera raw filter, and then in the exact same way we are going to put the same preset over this photo as well. We will be pulling the oranges a bit down and luminance of the orange a bit upwards. In the basic tab we will be pulling the shadows a bit up, and blacks, put the exposure a bit up as well, and it looks a bit yellowish, so we will go to the color mixer and fix the yellows towards the oranges and pull the saturation a bit down, and this looks good. So this is the before and this is the after, with some subtle changes with the preset being applied. So this is pretty much the workflow, and I would rather say that's a pretty much some kind of workaround to get such contrasty black, punchy blacks, those blues to your photos. So that's pretty much it. So that sums up today's video. Just in case you are new to this channel, be extra friendly with the subscribe button. Also press that thumbs up button, that will mean a lot. It's not about just some days of scripting and recording this video in an hour. It's about more than 2.5 years of trial and error and constant quench to achieve all these colors through Photoshop, Lightroom and several other assets I have collected to reach here today. So a thumbs up and a constructive criticism about the whole video will mean a lot. So do drop that down. See you in the next video. Till then, take care. Bye bye.